In chapter 3 of Dr. Henry Cloud's Necessary Endings, he tells the story of two businessmen by the name of Blair and Jeff. Blair was a businessman who was in bonds and was one of the top guys in his field in the country. This was Blair's second career after owning a business in chemical manufacturing. And in this process, Dr. Cloud was wondering, how does a man become top of his field in this industry? And Blair had come to a time prior where his manufacturing business and chemical manufacturing had become obsolete. He had come to a place where he had an ending and had to make some decisions regarding the future of what he would do in his business. He had sold his business only after he had poured money into the business, only after he had taken out a second mortgage. Blair had put and invested a lot of things into making this business work, but Blair had come to the place in his business that he saw the handwriting on the wall, that his business was coming to an end. And when he recognized that his business was coming to an end, he made a necessary ending. Dr. Cloud was curious, how do you get to the top of your field in a second career, in the middle stages of life? And so Blair explained that he went back to school and realized after the company had no more life in it that it was important for him to now begin again. He needed a new beginning. And so Blair decided to go back to school for bonds. And when he did that, his career moved from an ending to a new beginning. However, there was another man that Dr. Cloud spoke about in chapter 3 of Necessary Endings, and this man's name was Jeff. Jeff had a similar situation as Blair, but Jeff, needing a necessary ending, made a different decision than Blair. Jeff, who had a similar situation, kept holding on to his current business. Jeff kept thinking that if there's just hope that this situation that I'm in would change. Jeff was holding on to an empty wish. What is interesting, Dr. Cloud writes that both of these businessmen had very similar backgrounds. Both of these were highly successful individuals. Both of these individuals had the capacity and capability to run businesses. Both of these men were in a situation where they were the top of their field. Both of these men were highly educated, but the difference between these two men was the ability to recognize that it is normal to have an ending. The difference between these two gentlemen was that there was a thing that Dr. Cloud said and that resonated with me, was that in this place, that the difference between the two is that Blair recognized the moment. Blair recognized the moment that he needed to normalize ending. Blair recognized that the moment was before him and Jeff didn't. It is interesting because here in the text that we are discussing in John chapter 5, there was a man who was very similar to Blair and Jeff. There was a man who was in a season of his life that he was coming to the ending. There was a man similar to Jeff and Blair who found himself in a situation what he could not change. You see, in the text that we're preaching from today, we hear from this familiar passage about the man at the pool of Bethesda. This man was an invalid of 38 years. Now, we know the terminology is no longer acceptable, but during biblical days, this is how he was described. This is a man who is potentially paralyzed or is severely incapacitated. And this man is at the pool of Bethesda. The pool of Bethesda is where everyone who was sick went. This is where everyone who needed a healing went so that their ending could change. Here at the pool of Bethesda is where this man found himself. And the pool of Bethesda was a place that had 5 porticos in some versions of the text, so 5 colonnades. For those who need a little bit easier to human life way, it's 5 structures that had a roof. And here at the pool of Bethesda, this 5 structured roof place had has two pools in it. And when the water is troubled, that's when healing occurs. And here the man at the pool of Bethesda has found himself here looking for a healing. This was difficult for me to understand for a little while because the text doesn't say how long he was at the pool of Bethesda. What was also interesting is because if he is an invalid, a paralyzed man, a man who is severely incapacitated, how did he even get to the pool of Bethesda? And furthermore, how did he get to a place that he could not seek healing? How he knew he needed an ending. How did he get there? I began to wrestle with the text because I wondered what pushed him to the place for him to get to the pool of Bethesda. I would believe that this particular man who was in need of a healing recognized that he was in a season where something needed to shift. The man at the pool of Bethesda clearly understood the words in Ecclesiastes where it says there's a time to kill, but there's a time to heal. He had to be very clear that his season was shifting and he wanted an ending. However, the man at the pool of Bethesda can be sometimes like many of us. The man at the pool of Bethesda could be in a situation where we feel like we're paralyzed by the world around us. It feels like there's no escape. The man at the pool of Bethesda clearly had some moments like Jeff where he was hoping, but he was hoping on an empty wish. The man at the pool of Bethesda can be like Jeff because here he's at the pool, but somehow he never gets in the pool. The man at the pool of Bethesda was in a place where he needed a new beginning, but he did not know how it would end. And so here there are people lying at the pool of Bethesda. The man was in need of a healing. He was waiting for someone to help him in. In the midst of the man being at the pool, Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem and he comes to the pool of Bethesda. And when he gets there, he recognized that there is a man who is laying there who had been ill for a long time. And in his spaces of recognizing that the man at the pool of Bethesda had been ill and had been incapacitated for such a long time, Jesus goes to this man and he strikes up a conversation and he says to this man, "Do you want to get well?" I like this part of the text because Jesus does something for the man that Dr. Cloud talks about in his book in a little different way. The way I see it is Jesus presents a door, and the question that we have to ask ourselves, will we walk through that open door? And so Jesus having a conversation with this man reverts back to Jeff. This man reverts back to Jeff because when Jesus says, "Do you want to get well?" he does like many of us do. He comes up with all of the excuses why he's not well. He comes up with the reason why he's still paralyzed. He comes up with the reason why he's still incapacitated by his situation. He comes up with the reason and says, "I can't end the situation because every time I try to go into the water, someone goes before me." He didn't look at his situation. He didn't look at the reality that maybe if he got there, then he should be able to get himself in there. I struggle because somehow he got to the pool, but he didn't have the strength to change his situation. And in the midst of this, he recognizes that he's having a conversation. But I want to stop here. Because in the midst of him having a conversation with Jesus, in the midst that the man at the pool of Bethesda comes into contact with Jesus, what is interesting to me is he doesn't know who he's talking to. He doesn't know the one who could give him an ending. He has no clue what's about to happen. But the difference between Jeff and Blair, the difference is that at this moment, the man at the pool of Bethesda shifts from Jeff and becomes Blair. Because at this moment, he makes a decision that he wants to get well. At this moment, he recognizes the moment and he says, "Yes, I want to get well." And when he does that, and when he walks through that open door, he gets up and picks up his mat. Now this man at the pool of Bethesda is speaking to us today because I still needed to go and research a little bit more. I've heard this story over and over again. It made sense to me before, but it wasn't as clear as it really is now because he wasn't laying on a Sealy Posturepedic. He was laying on a mat. And when I did the research, the type of mat he was laying on, commentators suggest that it was like the ancient Egyptian mats, which was a reed mat. The reed mat is like a yoga mat. It is something that you can pick up and it is portable. Why is this important? It's because the entire time that this man has gotten here, it is now realized that he had to make a decision to throw away the thing he's been laying on. He has to make a decision to stop carrying this mat that he was laying on and get up. And because he recognized the moment, he gets up and he walks. And here, the man at the pool of Bethesda walks through God's open door. Here, the man at the pool of Bethesda, except that his season is now changed. Here, the man at the pool of Bethesda has realized his normal endings. And because he has recognized the moment that he's come in contact with one that could heal him, he gets up, he makes an action, and he shifts and changes his season. He walks through the door that only one person can open, the door that no man can shut. He walks through the door when he recognizes that he is now healed, and he gets up, picks up his mat, and he walks. But he doesn't turn back. When you recognize the moment that God is ending some things, when you recognize that God is shifting your season, when you recognize that God is opening a door to new opportunities, you have to be like the man at the pool of Bethesda. You have to be like the man named Blair. You have to walk through the door and go ahead and shift your season. The getting up is realizing that there's something new to begin with. This is a time that the man at the pool of Bethesda saw his future, saw his healing, saw that his life would be no longer a life of disability and incapacitation. This is the time that the man at the pool of Bethesda walked into the moment that his life shifted. But the best part about the text is his new beginning doesn't just start when he gets up and picks up his mat. His ending creates his new beginning because the Jewish leaders at the time, just like church folk, not today, not at Epworth, but church folks at other churches, they will come to you and question what is happening. Who was the man that talked to you? And so it was at this point the man says, I don't even know. All I know is he told me to get up and pick up my mat, and I was immediately healed. The reason his new beginning started was that after he told them that, he went back and had a second conversation with Jesus. And Jesus said, you are healed, but go and sin no more. When God opens your door, when God gives you your new season, when you recognize the moment, your new beginning starts when you repent and sin no more. The man at the pool of Bethesda was ready for a new season. He was ready for a new beginning. But like Blair, he had to seize and recognize the moment. As I prepare to close, I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions today. I struggle with this chapter because many of us are like Blair and Jeff. Oh, we want to hold on to what's comfortable. We want to hold on to what feels normal. But we have to recognize the moment that Jesus steps in and says, I'm opening a new door for you. Let us be like the man at the pool of Bethesda. Let's stop trying to figure out who it is. Let's stop trying to say, I'm waiting. It reminds me of the story when they tell the story about the man who was in a flood. And he says, I'm waiting on Jesus to help me. He's on the roof. A boat comes. The driver tries to take him out and says, I can help you. But he doesn't go. Then there was something else that happened. And then the third thing that happened, there was a helicopter or a plane, and they're trying to lift him out. And they says, oh, this is your escape route. This is your way to end. This is your way to leave. And he says, no, hold on. I'm waiting for Jesus. The reality is Jesus can use anyone in any situation to open a door for you. But you have to recognize when the Spirit of Christ is before you, even if you don't know who's bringing it to you. Be willing to normalize endings. Be willing to normalize ending and saying, like Blair and Jeff, this part of my career is over. But because I have Jesus, I can start again. I can go into a new beginning. It may be different. It may be difficult. Do I want to go back and be in school again? No. But God is opening a door. And only thing I have to do is recognize the moment. Normalize ending toxic relationships. Normalize ending. And don't fear and be paralyzed by fear. Don't be paralyzed by being comfortable. Don't be paralyzed because you can't necessarily see what's on the other side of the door. Great womanist theologian, Dr. Renita Weems says, when the door opens, walk through it, and if you can't get through the door, go through a crack window. But be a part of shifting your season and walking through the door in which God is opening for your new beginning. Amen.
Glorious. Shout it out and glorious. Make it loud and Jesus, we shout your name. Jesus, we make your praise glorious. You are glorious. God, you are glorious. My God, you reign forever and ever. How great your name. Your love remains forever and ever. You stay the same. Shout it out if you know things good. Sing it out, for the Lord is good. Shout it out loud.